Good evening. I'm Antonis Petropoulos, the editor of EcoClub. I warmly welcome you all joining us from various parts of our wonderful lockdown planet. These Zoom events are one of the few positive side effects of the pandemic. Beyond helping us maintain our sanity, they can help us plan ahead for the great return of tourism to give real meaning to the catchphrase, building tourism back better. In this context, we are inaugurating today the EcoClub Green Destination Series. The meeting is being recorded and live streamed and will be available on our YouTube channel. As it is the first event, please allow me to briefly explain the aim of this series. We believe that a green destination is not one that presents a green image to visitors, but one that is genuinely green for visitors and hosts alike, in that its tourism model succeeds in meeting the key needs and aspirations of the local community, supports necessary public infrastructure such as hospitals, schools, public transport, without creating an excessive impact of the natural and cultural environment and resources, and without becoming a tourism monoculture, crowding out traditional economic sectors such as agriculture, but rather supports it by the exclusive use of local organic products in tourism. The destinations that we will be examining in this series are not fully sustainable. Very few destinations are, if we take into account air transport pollution, extra electricity and water consumption by tourists, and waste management. But these destinations that we will be featuring and effectively key people in these destinations are making a serious effort. Our intention is to review and encourage these efforts rather than beautify their results. So today we start this series with Kythera, a largely off the beaten track Greek island south of the Peloponnese, between the Ionian and the Aegean, with a permanent population of just 4,000 people living in 3 small towns and 60 villages. It has a colorful history and culture, being occupied or attacked at times by Minoans, Phoenicians, Mycenaeans, Spartans, Athenians, in a way that's still held by Athenians as it belongs to the Attica region officially, by Romans, Byzantines, Arabs, Slavs. It was a Venetian stronghold for 6 long centuries. It was besieged by Barbary pirates and the Ottomans. Then the French followed, the Russians and the British, who stayed 50 years and left a good road network and a unique institution which owns communal property. In 1864, the island joined the rest of Greece, but development largely eluded it, and many Kytherians migrated to mainland Greece and abroad. And as a result, today there's an active Kytherian diaspora in the US, Australia, and Germany. A Kytherian expert, the very knowledgeable Mr. Rigas Zafeiriou, will educate us today on the achievements and the challenges that this green destination faces. Mr. Zafeiriou is a consultant and researcher for the Mediterranean Institute for Nature and Anthropos and local manager of Kythera Trails, the trail network and sustainable tourism development program of Kythera Island. Mr. Zafeiriou is also programs director at the Kytherian Foundation for Culture and Development, while he has also worked for Pathos of Greece on trail research and design on many Greek islands. As a tour leader, he has designed and facilitated over 30 multi-day trail adventures for various leading tour operators in Greece. You may submit questions in writing through the chat facility here in Zoom or in YouTube during the presentation, and we will go over this at the end of the presentation. So, Mr. Zafeiriou, thank you for volunteering to educate us about Kythera. Please start your presentation.
Thank you very much for having me here, Mr. Petropoulos. I'm very glad to kickstart your new effort with the green destinations. I want to mention that by no means it is an easy effort to build a destination, a sustainable destination. So I really want to say that, of course, I'm going to present you some of our achievements, but by no means our program is the perfect one. We face also quite some challenges, and everything new and off the beaten path is always a difficult effort. So thank you very much for having me here. And by no means also I want to educate you. I want mainly to brainstorm also with you and of course provide some insights from my work, but also try to make a meaningful conversation, because as I told you before, it's really difficult to run projects like this. And I'm gonna talk about it briefly. So let's start this presentation. By the way, I also come from this island, and actually the thing you see now is actually my village, my home village. On this island is the capital of the island, a small town, village actually. So let's start. So I'd like to start with this picture that you see now. It's a very beautiful landscape. It's actually from a different point of view. Again, in the background, you can see this village that I showed you in the previous photo. And here, it's actually this picture encompasses a lot of the things we have achieved, because this picture is taken in April. In April, there is normally zero tourism on this island. There is no tourism at all. And here you can see some people from the Netherlands walking. This is an old trail that we have recovered, that we have renovated in a way. So now you can walk it. And also this is the first trail that has been certified with a Green Flag Trails certification. Is the first trail in Europe that is certified by this certification. So in a way, it encompasses a lot of the things we have done in one picture. But then the question is, okay, how did we arrive there to that result? Before I do that, I want to tell you how I organize this presentation. So these are the different parts of the presentation. First is a little bit theoretical, is about tourism generally, where we are at the moment. The second one is general about Kythera Island, and then combining Kythera Island with tourism. What can we do about that? And the fourth part is a small tour through the network of trails we've built. And the part 5 is a short 5 key messages in order to kickstart also the discussion. So a little bit about tourism. I want to be super brief, because that's a really long discussion. So tourism, we live in a region that is very touristic. The Mediterranean is actually the first mass tourism destination in the world, and Greece is one of the most popular countries. We are a small country. We had 27 million arrivals in 2017. That's exceeded 30 million the years after. The peak was 2018, 2019. We are in a high growth region concerning tourism. And the tourism is a big industry. It involves a lot of actors. I just want to, without going into any detail, tell you that even until today, Greece is mainly having this conventional model of tourism, which is deeply ingrained in the culture of Greece. And it's really hard to make a detour or to try to create a different paradigm of tourism, because this is really going on for many decades now. And this is a type of tourism that is mainly concentrated on the coastline of Greece, the 3S tourism, sea, sun, and sand. And this has grown to the point that we are now talking about over-tourism, which is briefly explained as too much tourism beyond the capacity of a destination, which is a crisis in progress. This is the buzzword of the last 5 years, over tourism. Everybody's talking about it. But we have reached the point where we need to cap, as Santorini did. We need to, we have exceeded the limits, the capacities of the destination, where we start now looking at how we limit that, and which has serious detrimental effects on the local societies. The rising cost of living is the most obvious one, to the point that locals from some places choose to leave, to migrate to another place, because there is simply too much congestion, too much tourism. The quality of life has decreased, and the cost of living has increased. So it's not livable anymore for locals, and they leave. To me, it sounds very dramatic, this. If we reach a point where locals leave from an area, go to another place because the tourists are too many. Here it's very close to Kythera. It's from another place. It's from Crete, and people, locals, complain about tourism, and which is the whole thing is explained by this nice diagram, which is already quite old, but I think it still explains things. How from a state of euphoria we go to a state of antagonism. In the beginning, tourists are very welcome. Then they become more and more and more. Locals get annoyed to the point where they see them not as something good, but rather the enemy. Just a typical diagram of explaining the carrying capacity. Of course, over-tourism is beyond that capacity. Elusive cure, because sustainable tourism as a notion, we have it already rather a long time. But how you bring that idea of sustainable tourism into reality is the big challenge. That's why I call it the elusive cure, because it's really hard to define it. What is sustainable and what is not? What is green and what is not? And how do you really put it into effect, especially when you have a conventional model of tourism so much deeply ingrained in the local economy and in the local society. It's really hard to change that. So I'm now going to tell you a few things about general facts about Kythera. So Kythera is one of the last untouched islands of the Mediterranean Sea. It sounds a bit exaggerating, this claim. It's rather true. If you go around the Mediterranean, you're going to see that there are, of course, other places too, but Kythera is one of the last untouched places of Mediterranean, and it makes it like a Mediterranean paradise in a way. This is where we are, between 3 continents, the Mediterranean Sea, and we are zooming in between Crete and Peloponnese. Here is Kythera on the national map. And as said by Antonis, we have a very, very complicated, tumultuous history that has created a very interesting locality on the island. But a lot of unspoiled landscapes. You can still find beaches like this one. My village, again, really a lot of different influences have created a melange, a very unique melange of influences. When we talk about cultural heritage on Kythera, we have a lot of local knowledge. We have this very impressive, extensive dry stone complexes, which is really a very important part of our heritage, these cultural landscapes. We have 5 protected settlements for their architecture, and we have almost 150 monuments inscribed by the Ministry of Culture. The traditions on this island are vibrant. They are still alive. They are going on. They are not frozen in time or put in the museum. They are very much alive, and this is what we like to promote as well. The food culture is very vibrant as well, very intensive. You can find a lot of typical products and recipes and stuff like that. A typical Mediterranean diet. And what is the highlight of this island is the dramatic differences of landscape. So the diversity of landscape from the very dry to the very green, different villages, 65 villages is very impressive to go around. And natural heritage, 820 plant species only in this small island, with a very high degree of endemism. 55 species are endemic. Special protection areas, a lot of Natura 2000 areas, a wildlife reserve, and of course, it's one of the last homes to the Monachus monachus, the Mediterranean monk seal, which is one of the rarest species on the planet. Tourism on Kythera, before we started doing our project, it has a slight but steady growth. I consider it as a miniature case of a conventional model with a very mild degree of impact still, because it's not really mass touring yet. The peak season, the tourist season, is very, very, very short, just a few weeks a year. It's partially concentrated on the coastline, on some few villages that have the sea nearby and so on. These are the touristic hotspots. And the viability of the local businesses is really stressed by this model of suddenly peaking, suddenly going down every year. So it's really hard hardly managed by the local businesses. And of course, from talking on the impact, the environmental impact, the water resources are stressed. We are now in the first phases of having this very acute water problem. So it's not really a big problem yet, because Kythera has some water resources, but we are now we are in the first steps of really facing this problem. And in the last years, we have some issues with the water availability in the summertime. So then the question arises, what type of development do we want on this island, and for whom? So who's gonna reap the benefits of development, and what type of development do we want? And our answer has been to create a program and to try to create a new paradigm for this island. And these are the different phases. It's of the last 10 years. We have started 10 years ago with this work, trying to find the old trails. Here you can see how we build them. We bring them back to life because the vegetation is overgrown or they are destroyed overall. We start putting signs and doing, and all this kind of, a lot of different people on the island felt the need to do something so that Kythera Island doesn't follow the example of other Greek islands where the impact on the local society, the local culture and the environment has been dramatic. Many people wanted to do something else, and this slowly has went under the wings of the Kytherian Foundation, where I work at the moment. And next to that, the Mediterranean Institute came on the island in order to test this, the InCreate approach, which is one of the core contributions of the Mediterranean Institute. So it's a collaborative approach, an integrative approach to culture and nature management. If you want to conserve nature, also including the human factor and the culture, the local culture in the project, so you can have a more integrated approach. And of course, I'm not going to go into details about the InCreate approach, but I just want to mention that it's divided in steps, and there are different principles and protocols for each step. So you can, in the way you can apply to any program where you want to merge culture and nature conservation into one thing. At the heart of this InCreate approach is the IMNC. It's a matrix for nature-culture linkages, where you can put your data together and you can have this nice matrix where you can prioritize things, where to concentrate when you want to conserve nature and culture. So we have, I can talk a lot about all this, but we have, by applying the in-create approach, we've arrived, I go directly to step 6, where we put all our data together and where we found out that in order to conserve nature on the island, we need to, we identified tourism as being the major kind of challenge, but also a major opportunity. So what we've done is to select tourism as the area of our intervention. One of the first positive outcomes of this in-create approach was to rethink how we do the project, because the project about trails was pre-existing. So we drafted like a strategy for the tourism of Kythera, and we've decided that it's very, very important that we create some collaboration at the local level. And that has been one of the major contributions of this approach, was to redefine it and create this collaboration, which includes the municipality of Kythera, the Domestic Estate Management Committee, which is the largest landowner of Kythera Island, and of course the Mediterranean Institute and the Kytherian Foundation, as I mentioned before. And we work all together in order to create a different paradigm in the age of over-tourism, which we call it experiential travel, which takes visitors from mass experience to tailor-made experiences, and travel destinations turn to the experience economy rather than the typical service economy that you have in tourism destinations. At the same time, we looked at adventure tourism and hiking, because it's really one of the fastest growing tourism sectors, and hiking is the most popular activity within that sector at the moment. And it all boils down to 3 key aspects in how we conceptualize adventure tourism and hiking. And of course, it's cultural immersion and interaction with nature. So in our case, it's like cultural heritage and natural heritage. And on the other hand is the physical activity, how we like to call it slow travel, where people can really immerse themselves into the landscapes and really have a much more wholesome experience of the place. And hiking is the perfect way to do it, because you have the time, you have plenty of views, you have the smells, you have the whole package in an integrated experience. One of the things we do is with these 4 organizations to build a common mission, which is about contributing to the experience of the visitors, but contributing generally to the well-being of the local community. And in that aspect, trails for us is the backbone of that experience. As I mentioned before, you can see this. The way we approach them is we consider the trails as heritage themselves. We recognize them as heritage. You see, these trails are built trails from our ancestors, and what we are trying to do is to find them and renovate them, rebuild them, restore them. And furthermore, we consider these trails as green infrastructure, where it's a no regret, low cost green infrastructure. So actually, you not only restore your heritage, but it's also like You don't need to make like big scale gray infrastructure projects in order to achieve a different model in tourism. So and not only that, hiking by default occurs in the shoulder seasons, so before and after the main tourist season. So in that way, we can flatten the spike that we see in summer by promoting shoulder season tourism. And for me, the most crucial maybe is that we actually use the existing infrastructure, and we don't have to create new infrastructure. We use it smartly because we don't need to build new hotels, generally accommodation and food service, because we can use the existing ones and prolong the period. And by doing all that, we promote within the community, but also to visitors, to have a better experience of the cultural landscapes and the natural landscapes of the island. So people get more sensitized, and by now we have triggered the community-based conservation. A lot of people get interest into trails nowadays. So I think that's a major positive impact of the whole thing. And here is an example of how trails look like. We're collaborating with Pass of Greece that does, we do all the technical part of building this network of trails. So with the signposting and the way we design the trails based on the old trails, we can make different trails together. We make the circular trails that create a top experience. Furthermore, with the Mediterranean Institute, we have registered 425 points of interest, which are related to cultural and natural heritage. We really exhaustively went through all the trails we have put in the network, and we have recorded all that. And not only that, we have combined it with an ethnographic study. So we have done around 50 interviews with the local inhabitants. So we try to uncover the stories behind those trails, because these are the old roads of the island. And we collect all this local knowledge in order to tell stories to visitors so that they have a deeper experience on where they are and where they are walking on. And this is one of the ways how people will be able to get those stories. Because now we're building this application, and of course it's going to be also on the website and so on. Furthermore, going back to the very first slide, we've been able to host the first European workshop for Green Flag Trail auditors. So different trail professionals from really great trail projects from around the world came on Kythera Island, and they learned how to become auditors for Green Flag Trails. And at the same time, we also accredited 2 of our 11 trails as Green Flag Trails together with this international team of trail professionals, because we are part also of the World Trails Network, which is promoting this certification. So we've been looking to the heart of the things we do and trying to have a sustainable management of the trails. One of the other things we have achieved is to branch out and include not only hiking trails, but also Via Ferrata, which is like a trail that combines climbing and hiking, an iron trail. So this is the very first one where you see the photo, the very first Via Ferrata on a small Greek island. This Outdoor Activities Greece is based on Kythera, it's a local company. we've been actively seeking meaningful collaboration on the local level. This is a very crucial point. Together also with another local company, which is called Rigas House, we've been running these winter Sunday walks. It's 80 plus free guided tours on the trails of Kythera, for the local inhabitants in winter. So it's mainly aimed at the local community, where we together discover our own island, which we consider equally important, so that the inhabitants, the local community, champions trails themselves. So we want to have this loose management or loose coordination. More, we want to be like facilitators for other initiatives on the island. So locals start being active, and now we do have an active community. Many locals do hike, and they call us and they tell us, we found, maybe you want to check this trail or the other trail, because of course there are many more trails on the island, old trails. So we can claim that by hiking in Kythera, you help in heritage conservation and local businesses, because we do not have big scale businesses. Most of the local operators are small, and they contribute to a vibrant local economy. Furthermore, we've been looking to other things as well. I mentioned before that we have a problem with the water. So we launched a program which is about restoring the old micro dams of the island, which are called vesis in the local language. So they have nothing to do with the big scale dams. These are some small scale traditional infrastructure for the people to be able to harvest and better manage the few water resources we have on the island. So again, we consider it to be a green infrastructure, a local-based, nature-based solution, which is affordable, small scale, and simple. And it's about local cultural values by restoring those old micro dams. And these micro dams are also fully integrated in the trails network. So along the trail, you can see them. That's a very new project. We just did them last September. And here is a photo of when we were actually building them using the local materials, fully integrated in the landscape. And they support not only, we want to revitalize this place so we have more water available for farming, so that the gardens, the fruit gardens and the veg gardens will come back to life. And at the same time, we support wildlife, because Kythera, again, I told you, it's very, very important for the migration of birds. So having more water bodies on the island is very crucial for those birds. And also all these other animals and creatures that live in this small water basins. And here is a new project we are actually launching at the moment, which is about biodiversity friendly olive groves. And we're going to be looking also at how we are going to kind of being able to connect them with tourism. So we are starting now with it's again a collaborative project with MedINA, with the Kytherian Foundation and the University of the Aegean. So we are not only looking at tourism, but we are looking at the broader, we have the broader picture of the island, and we see where we see fit to do interventions that are meaningful to the local community. And I want to mention this, that we are also at the very first stages of applying the Hikers Friendly certification, which is mainly for accommodations on the island. And in that way, I just want to mention that we are looking at how we create a destination overall that is sustainable. So we've been doing also a lot of promotion and marketing, of course, about all this. And this is the result of all the work. So now we have these 11 trails of 100 kilometers in total, including also one via ferrata. And now I'm gonna go very briefly to these trails so that you have an idea of how they look like. So now I'm going to trail M41, which I consider one of the most special, very interesting trails overall that I have ever done. So the Valley of the Watermills, which is an open-air museum where you can see 23 watermills. There are 4 waterfalls, and it's in high contrast with other dry parts of the island. A little bit about the heartland of Kythera, where you can see the medieval parts of the island, our local Machu Picchu, as I call it sometimes, in this very dramatic landscape. This used to be, this is Paliochora, the medieval capital of the island, a very unique place. And these are some of the landscape you see on the way going there. Now, very briefly going to the north part of the island, where we have we call it Nature and Contrast. It's a very long trail, this one, where you find these old trails that we have recovered. And actually, when you begin the trail, it looks like this, very green, very wet. And then you arrive to a place like this. So that's why we call it Nature and Contrast. Going to the east part of the island, we have many trails, around 30 kilometers of trails altogether in this part of the island. So people can combine multiple trails and they can go all over the place, some amazing landscapes. I'm going to give the example of trail M38, which we call it Enduring Pilgrimage, and it's our longest trail, and we are connecting places of worship spanning 4,000 years, from the Minoans to the Phoenicians, to the Temple of Aphrodite, to modern Christian pilgrimage sites, and so on and so forth. It's really all these things are united in one trail, and these are some of the landscapes you see on the way: coastal ways, seascapes, quite impressive. And now we're going to the south, where we have even more trails, where you see 6 options there, and you can see the capital of the island, where I also come from, the seaside. This is how it looks inside the village. Really amazing alleyways. Again, protected for its architecture, this village. You can see seascapes like this, very impressive. And when is the best time to hike on Kythera? You can do it all year round, because even the summer or in the winter is also fine. But spring and autumn is really a different experience. It's amazing. It's the ideal season. And how you can reach the island, there are various options: by ferry, and by plane. The simplest is from Athens. There are some charter flights, but this is the easiest, because you have every day the plane. Of course, this is all pre-COVID, and the schedules have changed since COVID-19. But let's say this is, so you need to get some information before coming. But this is, we hope this summer, again, we're gonna be having more flights. And here you can see from the south, Anti-Kythera Island and Crete. So you can combine Kythera with different excursions. But as I told you before, with 65 villages, with 60 plus beaches, with so many trails, you can spend many days on the island without being bored at all. So some key messages from my presentation today is that when you want to go out of the usual, out of the conventional, it's very difficult. So applying a different tourist model is rather challenging. green infrastructure is crucial. So I mentioned trails, I mentioned micro dams, and so on and so forth. Into that transition is really crucial to think about that, how you use in a smart way your existing infrastructure and so on. The foundation of everything is the common vision. If you don't have that, it's really hard to do any high impact projects. And what is also necessary is to have a broad open-ended collaboration, as I like to call it, the loose management, where you have more actors that they also can take lead in their expertise. And this adaptive management, in our case, the in-create approach, which I want to mention that all the information about all this online for free, and you can download for free all the instructions in how you can apply the in-create approach is at the website of the Mediterranean Institute. So this adaptive management approach really helped us into have an innovative approach into how we develop a trails network. And by that, I want to thank you very much, and I want to welcome you to the world of Kythera Trails. This is where you can find us, our website, and social media. So thank you very much. And of course, I'm open to any questions you have.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this great and detailed presentation. You really made us forget about the pandemic for half an hour and over for 40 minutes. But if I may ask the first question with two parts. The first is indeed about the pandemic. Considering that the island has resisted mass tourism successfully so far, would you say that the pandemic has not affected the island that much? Meaning people are still working in their other jobs, not in tourism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So So what I can say is that in our model of tourism, we've been so far greatly affected because the pandemic came right at the spring of 2020. So that was the hiking season. So there was zero connections to anywhere. There was zero possibilities for people to come. And in that case, we had quite some impact. But on the other hand, as you mentioned, Kythera relies on tourism, but the local community and the local economy is still diversified enough to find ways to work around it. So in that case, I would say the impact is great, but I think there are other destinations that have suffered more than Kythera. And on the other hand, the pandemic has, I think, helped us pause in the way we approach tourism, so we can think about it and see what type of tourism do we really want. In that way, the answer would be that there are new opportunities into outdoors because there is less congestion. So it is expected that this type of tourism, a more diversified model of tourism, might be also the answer partly to the pandemic as we move back into tourism.
I see. So this connects to the second part of the question. We see hear from you all these great things about Kythera, the pristine environment, the vibrant traditions, and so many sites and things to do. So if I was a bad, I want to make a lot of money, and there was an ill-intentioned investor. I wanted to come to Kythera and build a monstrosity, a huge hotel. What would really stop me? Because we can see that already there are some charter flights. I think your airport was enlarged to be able to accept larger aircraft. Also, I did a small search and saw that Airbnb already has 260 listings right now, even during the pandemic. And I read somewhere that there's something like 40% of vacant houses and another 20% of summer houses, exotica, that are not occupied throughout the year. So, I mean, there's a space there for expansion. So, and what really could prevent this expansion from happening? Because after the pandemic, there will be tremendous pressure in Greece and the Mediterranean for a big comeback for tourism. So, what can stop bad things from happening in Kythera, particularly?
My short answer would be a positive one, which is we don't want to stop anything. We want to divert things into a more sustainable pathway, meaning that, of course, there is space. There is space on the island, and according to the prevailing situation at each period in the island's history, there are different things happening. However, by saying that is that we want to really make it apparent a different model, and by that, by collaborating with the local businesses and the local community, create something that is more meaningful to the local community, that is more meaningful and more beneficial, because they're going to be the real beneficiaries of a more sustainable model. Because on the other hand, it's really hard to say that you can stop things and put the brakes in if something is to happen on the island. But our aim is to make something more meaningful. And as I like to say, sometimes when there is space, as you mentioned now that Kythera has a lot of space, so there is room for development. The space for me, it's not a vacuum space. It's not an empty space. The space is there for to be taken. So meaning that space, we want to fill it with a sustainable take-up of that empty space, and not to leave it for something that we already know that is not working in other parts of the world. That kind of mass, big scale type of tourism where you have a lot of big investments that actually extract and export the positive impact of tourism, and usually localize the negative impact of tourism. So the model we want to propose, which is happening, it's real, it's happening, is a model where you have a mild and more sustainable development of tourism. And tourism is a great force. It's a transformative force. And in places where there's as you mentioned, where there is a lot of space for that development, we've seen dramatic transformations in very short time spans, like in a few years, places in Thailand, places also in Greece, in the Mediterranean, that transformed in a span of 5 or 10 years. You see this dramatic change. We want something different. We want change, but in a more sustainable way, that the heritage becomes part of that solution, part of the development. And we don't eradicate it in order to have a new type of development, so that we kind of create links, bridges to the past and to the future. Yeah, I'm not sure if I answered your question, but actually there is no real barrier for any type of investment on the island. The only barrier that we have is the way businesses operate at the moment, the prevailing tourist model, and the domestic estate of the island, because the island of the land of Kythera, the public land, belongs to the Kytherians. We have this unique kind of organization on the island. So that helps in the mentality of the people, of course, the prevailing culture.
Yes, I would think that this institution, which reminds me of the National Trust in the UK, because it goes back all the way to the English times. I think it helps because all over Greece they are building outside cities. This we call εκτός σχεδίου δόμηση, that building whatever they want, without any plans. Plus, the positive thing I think is that you have all these protected areas, 150 you mentioned inside.
Yeah, these are the monuments. So we have a lot of monuments because of the Byzantine times and so on, and going all the way to the ancient. And plus, we have all the natural protected areas.
So all this helps create a barrier to uncontrolled development, I would think. Plus, I think inside the villages, all the buildings have to be traditional. They're protected.
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah, the 5 settlements are protected, but I have to mention that fortunately, a lot of, and that's why I mentioned many times the prevailing culture. A lot of people that have been on Kythera, invested on Kythera, they usually, not always, usually it's the building renovations in order to create small hostels have been rather good, really respecting the local architecture and the local environment. That's not to say that it's perfect, the whole situation on the island, but we are fortunate to have these types of investments so far, and that goes to the prevailing culture that we have on the island at the moment. There are a lot of people sensitized, and the island attracts these people attracts people that are more sensitized into cultural and natural heritage. So that's a barrier. Going back to your previous question, that's a barrier.
Thank you. Would any participant like to ask a question, either to type or to ask it live, to open the microphone, and whatever you prefer? We have some time for questions, 10 minutes, or through YouTube. 10 people are watching through YouTube at this moment. Thank you. Perhaps you have some questions. You want to learn something about Kythera? This is your chance. Until they think something, may I ask for another type of threat? Currently in Greece is a big expansion of wind-powered electricity, wind generators. And I think Kythera is linked to the mainland with a cable now. So you don't have any factories, electricity factories. They have been abolished. But are there any pressures to install these big power, these big wind turbines on Kythera?
Yeah, so that's a very complicated issue, and in my case personally, even more, because I've been involved with various organizations. I've been involved into promoting renewable energy, and now I'm really hesitating to say so, because it has been really complicated, because it's really what has been proposed is really out of scale. It's really out of the local. It's we're talking about industrial scale wind farms that are way beyond any they have nothing to do with the landscape, the cultural landscape I've been talking all the time. So, and actually, it's also it's not only the end result that you see some wind turbines, which are not so bad in the end, but the problem is that in order to build all those, you need to create huge roadways, big dirt roads going through every single part of the island in order to install them, and you need to use tons of concrete and other materials and all these that make it really complicated. So because I have a hard time to tell you, the answer is yeah, we have a lot of pressure. The plans are for more than 100 wind turbines that are huge, more than 100 meters high. Of course, it's going to result, if that ever happens, it's going to result to the biggest transformation of the Kytherian landscape that we have seen in all the 7,000 years of the island's history. It's way beyond the scale of anything that has happened so far on the island. And that is really, and again, I told you that it's very complicated because it's very easy to say no, we don't like this. But on the other hand, I've been involved into promoting renewables, but it has to be a much more delicate process than what is currently happening, this fast track, install them everywhere type of policy that we have now in Greece. That's way different from what we had in mind back in the day, where we were promoting the adoption of renewable energy in the national policies all around Europe, not only in Greece, everywhere. So what we wanted back then is very different from what we see now. Going to every pristine area of Greece, installing wind turbines in crazy locations. If you see the plan, you're gonna have a hard time to comprehend how we ended up with this. It's really hard to grasp. So yeah, we face the same challenge as many other places. I would say that Kythera Island it's gonna have its own unique ways dealing with this problem, and let's see how it ends up. But it's pretty. The root of the problem is the same: is what type of development do we want? That's the main question we need to answer, and then starting from there, we're gonna check every sector of the economy and of the society to see what type of investment, what type of strategies we want to follow. And I think the reality is really more complicated than being pro or against wind turbines.
Thank you. And plus, the Kythera is on an important bird migration corridor, so this would complicate things further.
Actually, it's a national level. It's a national level bird migration corridor. That means that it's of national and European interest. It's not. It has nothing to do with Kythera itself. Kythera is just a passing point. So yeah, it's one of the major. If you go deeper into the wind turbines problem, it's one of the major things we're going to look at. The public land that belongs to the Kytherians is also another issue we're going to look at. And generally, the alteration of the cultural landscapes and how much do we need to sacrifice in order to put those wind turbines.
Thank you. We have a question from Mr. Andrew Silito. Could Rigas perhaps say a little on how the project has been funded to restore the paths and how they propose to fund the maintenance long term?
Mm-hmm. So The answer is we have so many different sources that it's hard to say only one. So I told you we have 4 organizations behind the project at the moment, and each one within the memorandum of understanding that has been signed by these 4 organizations has the obligation to fund parts of the program. From one side, we have donations, and mainly operated by the Kytherian Foundation. It's the organization responsible for collecting donations and putting it into the program. And then we have a European and other type of programs like the CLLD programs from the European Union, and the Mediterranean Institute has been the lead into managing those programs, those funding schemes. And the municipality of Kythera has been directly supporting the program in one way or another by directly giving money from the budget, and in some cases also funding our participation into international fairs and conferences and stuff like that. So it's many different sources. The difference with other trail projects in our case is that we have been trying to go to be innovative in all stages, being able to look broadly at tourism and not only concentrating on a narrow aspect of just building trails. And the main thing is that we've been able to put a management strategy behind them, behind the trails. So in that way, the management of the trails and the maintenance of the trails, answering to your question, is being run mainly by the Kytherian Foundation. So we have a kind of a destination management organization that is taking care of the trails. And 2020, last year, even though we had the pandemic already going on, we've been able to maintain 100% of all these 100 kilometers because we do have a face, we do have an organization behind, and we do inject energy and money and time into maintaining the trails. So when somebody is coming to the island, you can really find all those trails and you're not gonna get lost or not be able to work. So we try to maintain the infrastructure. That way we put also the Green Flag Trails certification system behind, because the Green Flag Trails is not only a fancy way of saying that I've been certified. So being certified means also being recognized, but also it's about the management of the trails. So to have a sustainable management of the trails, so that anytime the trails are operational and there's somebody taking care of the trails, and we maintain them, we find the obstacles, we find the problems, because the 100 kilometers of trails are out there and they do have problems every season. We have even landslides, the vegetation is growing back, and many different problems that we face. So we go behind those problems and we fix them.
So would you say the funding is sustainable, meaning a great part is from Kytherians, either abroad, from the diaspora, or local, from Kytherians living now and working the island?
So I would say that it's difficult to secure funds for maintenance, because maintenance it's not as attractive as an idea as running a new project in order to apply for funding. form European Union and so on and so forth. That's why we are trying to do the following. We are trying to raise donations every year for the maintenance of the trails. Plus, we are running a project that is about adoption of trails. So we want local communities to adopt their trails, and that's been quite successful so far. So we have a few of our trails already adopted by local organizations inside the communities, inside the villages. So they do take care of their trail, of course, with our support. We are not absent, we are present also. But we have this, now the community on the island takes care of the trails. That's one of the achievements. And at the same time, we want to include a budget in the yearly budget of the municipality to which goes for the maintenance. So there are 3-4 different ways we are trying to deal with the issue. Another way would be to link maintenance with profit. That's an interesting one, but so far we haven't gone deeper into that. There are some things that need careful consideration before doing that.
I see. So perhaps you would consider also tourists adapting the trails. I saw in Crete that they are some tourists have been sponsoring all the ancient olive trees. So that's an idea. Perhaps people that go on your trails can then donate to sponsor. I don't know how you could adopt this trail for tourists. Perhaps this is an idea.
Yeah, I think that that is more applicable also to recurring returning tourists, so that people that love the island and they come again and again to Kythera, which we have these cases. So people that are more deeply bonded to the island, so they want to contribute and all this. And also there is the what we have been trying to do was also to run more organized volunteering opportunities on the trails. So because there are more and more people that want to help physically also in the maintenance of the trails, so we are trying to create those opportunities. We've been, as many other initiatives, that has been terminated by the COVID-19, because 2020 was the first year that we wanted to introduce more organized volunteering programs. So let's see what happens after in the 2021. I hope it's going to be a little bit better, so we can organize more opportunities.
I see. I mentioned Crete, and our member, Miss Nikki Rose, who is an expert and a tour operator in Crete for culinary tours, is asking this. Sounds like an excellent project, very challenging, but I think they will succeed. My question, how are they incorporating organic farming into the environmental protection model? Thanks. Organic farming.
So, actually, many of my best friends on the island are organic farmers, so we have a great sympathy. I've studied organic farming. Actually, my master's in the Netherlands was organic farming, so I'm really happy about this question. So organic agriculture, look, so far, we, in order to create something more inclusive, we've started with a new program which is about biodiversity-friendly olive groves, which maintain traditional landscapes and provide a good product, like a really good product, like a really good olive oil, because Kythera is in the olive growing zone of Greece, so it's the main type of farming at the moment. Unfortunately, I have to add, but that's the present situation. So we've been looking at olive farming as being the number one product in terms of volume and farmers on the island. And we've tried to come up with an idea of how we include more of these farmers. Diversity friendly type of olive growing. And so we are using, we are including, we want to include organic farmers in that. We are very much in the beginning, so I cannot tell you many details because we are forming now. But we wanted to really make it as open as possible. So we didn't want to put very strict limitation on only organic farmers. So the idea is to have this precision agriculture, which we as a group, as a team, we don't really fancy that word very much because it can mean so many different things. But in our case, it means agriculture that supports traditional practices, but is also at the same time backing it up with some data and a kind of a good way of limiting agrochemicals on the farms to the point where it is almost organic, including some organic farmers. So it's a separate system, but also would work very nicely with organic farmers as well. So we want to use this precision agriculture in order to back up with data, traditional practices, maintain traditional landscapes, and at the same time certify the farmers that are going to form a group of farmers that are going to produce similar quality olive oil, and then they will reap more benefits from selling that olive oil, because at the moment the whole production is unsustainable because the cost of production is higher than the revenue. So it doesn't, in few words, unless you are a super big farmer that you own many hectares of olive groves, it doesn't make any sense as a small producer to really even start producing olive oil because your cost is higher than what you earn. So we want to look at this problem and make it more sustainable for farmers to continue doing that. And one of the ways is linking into our tourism project, linking the farming project to the tourism project. So of course, there's going to be a more direct linking between consumer and producer. In that way, we hope to support producers.
Nikki is typing some clarification questions. Are you collaborating with Agroecology Greece or Agroecology Europe? And she also is asking about any community-based agricultural cooperatives on Kythera.
So we are fortunate on Kythera to have 3 cooperatives at the moment, which are, let's say, the traditional type of cooperatives. One is for beekeepers, because as you know, Kytherian thyme honey is one of the better known, very famous. So this is the beekeepers cooperative, and 2 farmers cooperatives that is mainly to 90% is olive growing, the whole thing. So we do have these 3 cooperatives, and we're going to be working with the 3 cooperatives, plus a lot of independent farmers that are not on the cooperatives. And we are gonna we are collaborating the Mediterranean Institute and the Kytherian Foundation and the University of the Aegean is the partner in this new project. And some modules maybe are going to be done by the University, Agricultural University of Athens, including some experts on agroecology. but we are not collaborating with Agroecology Europe or any of these organizations. But again, we are starting, so now we are building a map of potential collaborators. Let's say we are very open to collaborating generally by default. So let's see. But at the beginning, we are. This is the concept: cooperatives on the island, independent farmers at the same time. The two main organizations that are running the program, the Kytherian Foundation and the Mediterranean Institutes, plus a lot of know-how from the University of the Aegean.
Thank you. If there are not any other questions, I'll ask something, final one. What about hunting? Because we talked about the birds and the migration corridor. Do you get any hunting tourists, or are locals passionate about hunting? They have a tradition?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, hunting on Kythera, it's really a very, very, very traditional practice without any positive or negative connotation to it from my side. In the past, a lot of the meat requirements of the families, we've been looking a lot about traditional practices in our project. That's why I'm saying all this. A big part of the meat requirements of the family in the old times would come from hunting birds. So that means that hunting in the old times used to be a livelihood strategy. It was important to have as fishing and hunting. That one could say could be the sustainable dimension into hunting. Of course, things changed over time because the tools people use changed. That's even more apparent for fishing. The tools in fishing for professional and amateur fishermen have changed so dramatically that now the fish stocks have been almost depleted. I think that's even more dramatic than birds. And also talking about birds, of course, there is still hunting. Of course, it's more tightly regulated at the moment. And I would say that is a little bit out of vogue, out of fashion. It's not so much as in the past. In the past, it would be like, it was part of the traditional activity. So more or less everyone would hunt. But hunting a few birds, it's very different from hunting massively. And I think the major problem in the migration of birds at the moment is not Kythera, is I think mainly north of Africa. In the north of Africa, you have the most losses in the birds migration so far, as far as I know, because it's not my expertise, the bird migration, but this is as far as I know. Talking about Kythera, we have this local hunting organization, and usually it's mostly people hunting. Usually, I'm not saying there are not illegal huntings and stuff like that. Of course, there are, as fishing as well. But I don't think it's very dramatic, the situation. And usually the hunters on Kythera, it's more a cultural thing. It's more about having fun, going to the nature and celebrating if you catch anything than really professional. I'm saying this is the majority. Of course, there are the bad exceptions as well.
So fortunately, no hunting tourists. So I want to encourage this also. Yes.
Our project is really not going into that at all. We don't even mention it. I don't have anything against, personally, against hunters if they do it in a good way. But it's not our. It's
priority.
Not ours.
Okay. So I'd like to thank you very, very much for inaugurating our series. I hope it was interesting for you also.
And
Please.
Thank you very much for having me. And I want to tell you, if anyone wants to know more about Kythera, please ask Mr. Petropoulos to pass you my email or phone, and you can ask me whatever you want. So I'm at your disposal in case you need anything from Kythera. And of course, there are the links to all the social media, Kythera Trails, and to the website, so you can find us there. And I'm really very grateful for giving us the space and time for presenting some of the things we do on the island. And we wish you a very good continuation to your series.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you to all participants, and to those watching us from YouTube and from Eco Club. We hope to see you soon on our next green destination event. Thank you. So good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.